Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Best Practices in Lead Nurturing. My name is Meghan Krohn, and I'm the Marketing Manager of Canada at IDP Connect. We decided to address this topic as part of our professional development series of webinars because we had several partner institutions reach out to us and say that while they are getting many leads, they don't always know what to do with them or don't always have a system in place to manage them properly. So we wanted to bring together some of our partner institutions who do have robust lead nurturing practices so that we can share knowledge across the sector and learn from one another. So without further ado, I will introduce our speakers for today. So as I mentioned, I'm Meghan Krohn. I'm thrilled to be joined by Andrew Goodliffe. He is the Associate Dean at the University of Alabama. Elle Butler, who is the Head of Marketing for North America at IDP Connect, and Kevin Durr, who is the Marketing Team Lead at NAIT. So just before we jump into the session's content, I'll quickly introduce IDP Connect for those that may not know us. IDP Connect is unrivaled in providing the higher education sector with a trusted, full-funnel strategic recruitment solution. From a student's initial search through to their arrival on campus, IDP offers students and institutions a seamless, omni-channel journey that places human interactions at its heart. At IDP, we are proud to be able to say that as we evolve and build our business, we do so with the student at the center. Whatever stage of their journey, we are by their side, available 24/7 via our digital platform, and by building trusted human relationships through our network of qualified counselors. By placing students at the heart of everything we do, we know we are providing them with the right advice and providing institutions with the right students. We have a physical network of student-facing offices in over 30 countries, and we send students to the 6 major English-speaking destinations, so the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Ireland. We have over 1,300 IDP counselors throughout this network, and therefore we are truly embedded within the markets in which we operate, and students really trust the IDP name. Alongside the physical network, we also have the largest digital presence of any international student service provider across our websites and our global app. We operate over 30 student-facing sites across Hot Courses and idp.com, and this map on the screen highlights our Hot Courses sites across the globe. They are all locally hosted, so you can see the .br for Brazil and the .vn for Vietnam, and so on. And because we have access to the largest community of international students in the world, with over 100 million annual visits to these websites, we subsequently hold the largest data set on international student behavior in the world. So, what exactly is lead nurturing, and why is it so important? Simply put, leads come from a number of activities, including form fills on your websites, registrations from webinars, and so on. And nurturing is the process of developing and reinforcing relationships with prospective students at every stage of their customer journey. And why is it so important? So students are often reaching out to not just your institution, but several others as well. And you need to ensure your leads you nurture your leads so that you stay top of mind with prospective students who will hopefully go on to apply to your institution. So now we'll talk about some of the challenges of lead nurturing. And these are some of the most common ones we hear about. So a lack of resources. This is the #1 challenge we hear about from institutions, and it really ties into all the other bullets that are listed on this slide. So some departments are quite small and they may not have enough staff to follow up on leads, and they may not have enough time to follow up on their leads. Another challenge is technology. So some institutions have access to limited technology. They may not have a sophisticated email marketing system to follow up with their leads, and they may not have a CRM to track them at all. Timing. So as we know, it is important to follow up with your leads in a timely manner. With limited resources, we often hear a challenge of nurturing leads is institutions are following up too late, or in some cases, they might not be following up at all. Messaging. So as you'll hear later on from our presenters, creating targeted messaging for your different audiences is important. and this can be challenging with a lack of resources. And content development, so actually creating the emails, the graphics, ads, and so on to follow up with your leads with limited resources can be difficult. So although I've just listed some of the challenges of lead nurturing, Elle will take it from here and will provide you with some easy tactics and tools to help you nurture your leads.
Thanks so much, Megan, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I am super passionate about this topic because, as some of you may know, I used to work for Temple University, and a big part of my role there was lead nurturing our international student leads. So I'm going to run through some of the basics just to lay the foundation for what we're discussing, and then I'll pass it over to our partner institutions who have some incredible content to share about their successful lead nurturing practices. So first, just touching on where schools are getting their leads. So one source is institution search sites such as our hotcourses.com and idp.com. And those of you who are working with us digitally are, of course, getting leads through those. There are fairs and high school visits. And as we all know, these events have been mostly virtual over the past 2 years. There are marketing campaigns such as paid ads that you can place on Google, on social media channels to drive leads. Some schools in the US also purchase lists of student names from SAT, TOEFL, College Board, and so on. I don't believe that Canadians do this as much due to privacy regulations, but this is more common in the US. A reminder that not all leads are created equal. So leads can be categorized as either inbound or outbound leads. And inbound leads are those students who actively seek you out, such as the students who land on your profile on your institution search sites like Hot Courses. They submit an inquiry form and they're essentially saying, I want to hear from you. Please send me information about your institution. So they are voluntarily becoming your lead. Outbound leads are the ones that you are reaching out to cold, like name buys from the SATs, in the hopes that they will be interested in your institution and that they will open your emails. And according to Marketo, which is a large marketing firm, inbound leads are 10 times more likely to convert because these leads want to hear from you. They want to be nurtured. So as much as possible, you want to make sure that you have a healthy flow of inbound leads into your system. Next, we're going to touch on some key pillars for successful lead nurturing. So the first, which Megan touched on a little bit, is timing and communicating in a timely manner. So it'll be no surprise to anyone on this webinar that Gen Z wants instant gratification. According to Forbes, they are on their cell phones for an average of 9 hours a day. So if they submit an inquiry form to 3 different institutions, you do not want to be the one who's sending them an email a month later. So your communications have to be timely and responsive. Number 2 is segmentation and personalization are key. So as much as possible, try to segment your student leads into categories that will give them a more meaningful lead nurturing experience. So that could be breaking them down by major, by source country, by interests, and so on. Number 3, create content that proactively answers student questions and make it as engaging and fun as possible. So you all know what kinds of questions students are asking you. What should I major in? What are my housing options on campus? Do you have scholarships? All of these questions can be made into content such as videos, a video tour of housing for international students, a blog about scholarships, an interview with international students about their clubs and activities. And Kevin, who will be presenting in a moment, has really fun and engaging content for prospective students. So you'll see that shortly. Number 4 is remember that it takes multiple touches and that each touch point should have a call to action. So that call to action doesn't have to be apply now. In fact, it shouldn't always be apply now. Sometimes the call to action is just to get a student to engage with a video or to register for a virtual event that you're hosting, but you do always want to ensure that there is an action that you are pointing students toward in every communication that you're sending. Number 5, email is still king. So if someone tells you, oh, students don't read email anymore, you have to do everything through TikTok or Instagram or WhatsApp, that is absolutely not the case. Although those platforms do have merit and they are a great way to supplement your lead nurturing emails, but research shows that students still expect to hear from higher education institutions through email. And lastly, of course, track and measure your success. And this is where your CRM is going to come into play so that you can see which of your lead sources are converting best for you. A quick note, just diving a bit deeper into segmenting your leads and how you can send the most relevant content possible. And that is to be sure to use data to shape your lead nurturing strategy. So this screenshot here is an example of data from our demand tracker tool, where you can dive down really deeply into prospective student demand. So for example, if you have some student inquiries from Turkey, but you don't have much other information on them, you could dive in and see the top cities where leads are coming from in Turkey, the top program interests of those students, and that could give you a good idea of the types of programs that you should be promoting and marketing in your nurture campaigns to those undecided students. Another way to keep your institution top of mind for those leads who have already inquired with you are retargeting campaigns. So these can be really effective for re-engaging students. So on the left-hand side of this slide is an example of a retargeting campaign that we recently did with Boston Architectural College. So what we did in this campaign was retarget not only students who had searched for Boston Architectural College on our IDP sites, but we also retargeted students who were looking at their competitor institutions and similar programs to what Boston Architectural College offers. So this helps to continue to reach those students and stay top of mind with them after they navigate away from their research journey. It's a great way to remind them of an upcoming deadline. You can see that's what Boston Architectural College did there on the left, or to get them to register for an online event that you might have coming up. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to the main event because Andy and Kevin really have some super interesting content about their successful lead nurturing campaigns. So I will pass it to Andy first. Andy,
all right, thank you. All right, a little bit of an introduction about Alabama. So the University of Alabama is a large R1 state flagship comprehensive doctoral research university. We've got about 38 to 40,000 students. I work mostly with the graduate students, of which we have about 6,152 on campus. We've got a fairly small but growing number of international students. And then we've got about 7,000 staff members and about 350 different programs, just to give you sort of an idea of scale and type of university. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the UA lead nurturing journey, it's been a long journey. So I've been working in the graduate school at the University of Alabama for close to 10 years. When I came on board, we were doing things in a very traditional sense. So we were going out to fairs, we were collecting lists, typically handwritten, of prospects. If we were lucky, we could actually read the writing when we got home. Brochures and messaging were really designed by in graduate school non-experts. A lot of them I just put together in my spare time. There was very little international recruitment, very poor follow-up with admitted students. And we were just starting to get a CRM, a customer relationship management tool, but it was really a suboptimal one and really did not help that much. Now, if we fast forward about 5 years, priorities very much shifted at the university, and grad student recruitment especially became more important. And given our fairly low number of international students, that became a major target, sort of low-hanging fruit. And there was a simultaneous increase in domestic recruitment activities as well. And within that 5 years, one of the really key things that happened to us was we actually shifted to a new CRM tool that was far more user-friendly. And that really has been a game changer for lead nurturing. Now, if we look at us today, I'm actually pretty proud of where we are today. We're working with digital marketing partners to provide the tools and marketing specific expertise. We've managed to build a team consisting of partners in our marketing department and in our IT department, as well as additional expertise within the department. We have a constant flow of leads to actually feed our CRM, which is fully integrated with the application system. And really, the really key part of this is an amazing admissions and recruitment team. So let's give you a little bit more detail on that on the next slide. So a little bit about where we get leads. Just to continue on from Ellie's comments. In-person fairs, those were important up until about a year and a half ago for obvious reasons. Those have largely been replaced by virtual fairs. So we actually largely make a decision to attend fairs based on the number of leads that we'll get, especially if a fair provider will provide us with a list of all leads who are attending the fair, not just those that are coming to our booth. So lots of agent-driven fairs, groups like Education USA, commercial providers like FPP, and those leads are loaded directly into our CRM. And I do want to re-emphasize one thing that's very important. We get those in sometimes in real time and at least within a day into our CRM. So we are talking with students immediately. We do also purchase lists, so things like GRE lists, etc. We do a lot of social media. Some of this is created in-house, some of this is created by third parties. With those, the prospects are driven directly to web pages and lead generation forms. I do want to say we've also had a lot of success with student-driven social media, finding students in particular countries who are University of Alabama students who are very active on social media. This has been tremendously important for us. Web pages, so in-house web pages, things like IDP Connect hot courses, generating leads for us as well. We do a lot with retargeting as well. We do a lot with making sure that we are at the top of Google search lists. So we work with a couple of providers that help with that. In the graduate school, we also work directly with faculty, and we will provide funding to faculty to go to their own fairs in their own specialist areas to gather leads as well. And so that's a very key part. And again, I want to re-emphasize something that was said earlier. With all of these, we're tracking these leads by event. So if we went to an IDP fair in Calcutta, we have it tagged as that lead came from that person. So we can go back at a later time and immediately determine, okay, who actually enrolled from that fair. That's very important in determining where we put our funds. Next slide, please. Once we get a lead, we actually have a series of about 9 plus or minus adaptive prospect emails. We nowadays focus on student stories. So if we have an international student lead, we will make sure that they get a story from one of our own international students. If we get a student from China, we will make sure that they have imagery showing Chinese students on campus. So, and also if they're interested in the physics program, they will get specific information about that physics program. So that prospect and lead specific imagery and messaging is really essential to us. We actually do also create a specific student portal, sort of a microsite for each of our prospects. And so that is customized with information to their program. They're also directed to the application system. They're directed to events. Again, that retargeting, call to action is very important. And then also if a student starts their application during this, we actually have them drop into a different series of messaging that focuses on completing that application. Next slide, please. Now, again, I mentioned adapting that imagery and messaging is very, very important. So things like not sending STEM lab images to business students. University of Alabama, we're fairly well known for our football team, despite what happened on Monday. We generally will not send football-related imagery to STEM students, but we will send football-related imagery to business students who tend to be more into that. We do play to that. That does bring in students. We also are very careful with consistent use of wording and awareness of our institutional personality. So the image on the right shows how we've defined our brand personality. So we've defined it based on these three colors. So blue, influential leader, the sort of yellow, progressive transformer, and then brown, determined contender. So we make sure that we're using messaging along those lines. And then also, just quick aside, for our domestic students, we're adapting messaging also based on household demographics. So we're sort of trying to extract what might interest those students. So that's something we're really starting to play with right now. Next slide, please. Just to show the details of how we can adapt some of the messaging to the audience. So we've developed, in partnership with one of our commercial partners, these psychographic profiles for different types of students. So this is a particular profile that we refer to as reliable researchers. And on here, you'll see towards the bottom, there's an attractant strategy. What actually excites these students? So for example, we refer to these, this brown category. These students are drawn to the brown determination category and focus elements of the personality. They're also interested in yellow. That's sort of our classification of forward thinking and intelligent dimensions. So we're always thinking about how we message. And I really do rely on our marketing team when I put something together to sort of rehash what I've written and put it in the context of this particular audience. Next slide, please. Some lessons we've learned. So I do not have a marketing background by any stretch of the imagination. I'm actually a geophysicist, and I quickly learned that I know nothing about marketing, but I'm really good at finding people who do. So we went after, we looked around campus to find the experts and made sure that we had people who knew what they were doing. Just to emphasize again the importance of calls to action, the fact that every email does drive the student to do something, attend one of our seminars, apply, etc. So you do need that. One big lesson I learned as a non-marketing person is that I am actually clueless in terms of what imagery works. So I'm a scientist. The image on the bottom left-hand side is from some of my own research. To me, that will get people excited. The reality, though, is I'm not the target audience, and that does not excite students in emails. So the sort of imagery that does is imagery with students doing things and all that sort of stuff. So we did a lot of what we refer to as A/B testing with imagery. So sending out emails with different images and seeing which performed the best, which got the most clicks. And that was very, very informative to me. Next slide, please. So what happens once a prospect is admitted? We actually send them into another series of emails. So a prospect enters the admitted yield campaign. In this, it's about another 8 or 9 emails. They get directed to university resources, things like student ambassadors who will answer their questions, funding, housing, career center, orientation, all the sorts of things that a new student may need. And we keep on hitting on those calls to action. So the email on the right-hand side, you'll see the call to action is reply to offer. We want to drive them to make a decision. So we're continuously directing them to commit to this offer or admission. Next slide, please. So outcomes. I have been really, really impressed with how things have worked, especially in the last couple of years. So having that strong team and a great marketing strategy in place has really been transformational for us, especially as we grow our international enrollment. The numbers really speak for themselves. So since 2019, our international applications are up about 242%. I mean, it's really, really stunning. We're up about 110% on admits, and enrollments up about 26%, which during a time when most folks are struggling to have flat enrollment is really a strong testament for this sort of lead nurturing. Just a quick aside, I did see a question about what CRM we're using. We're actually using a CRM called Slate, which is increasingly common in the US. And I'm a huge evangelist of that CRM. Anyway, that is the end of my slides, and I'm going to hand the podium to Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Andy. And let me just start off by saying, for someone who says they're not a natural marketer, I think you speak very eloquently to a profession. So do not sell yourself short. That was an awesome presentation. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me one moment. All right. Okay. And can everyone maybe give me a thumbs up or a verbal cue that they can see the PowerPoint?
Looks good.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So hi, everyone. So my name is Kevin Durr. I'm representing the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. So really happy to be here today to talk about lead nurturing. Lots of great insights and tips shared so far by my fellow panelists. So what I'm hoping to do in the next 10 to 15 minutes is share a real example of a project we did here at NAIT that generated prospective leads and what we did to nurture them. So kick it off. Okay, so just to kick off, like very quick background about the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. So we're located in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We're one of the biggest polytechnics here in Canada as well. We're home to over 16,000 students in credit programs, and we have 4 schools that cover from business and health, science, technology, as well as skilled trades. So, before jumping to like what we did, I'll quickly describe what problem we were actually trying to solve. So myself and the marketing team, we work very closely with our recruitment team. And before COVID, the recruiters gave us some very insightful information where, in their conversations with prospective students, in the simplest form, you can split them into 2 groups. So those who know exactly what they want in your career and what program to take, and those who have no idea yet and is really looking for guidance. And it's not surprising to see like this second group, because I think choosing a post-secondary institution is a really big decision and can be quite overwhelming. And what we heard from our recruitment team and some of the challenges that they have when they meet with this second group is that they have a short amount of time to speak with each student. Usually it would be around less than 15 minutes per student when they were meeting them in person. And because of those time constraints, having really meaningful conversations was a challenge. A lot of time was spent doing some light career advising with questions like, so what do you like? What do you do in your spare time? What do you not want to do as a future job? So it can be really difficult in helping them get started and finding a future program or career that really suits their interests and personality, as well as their aspirations. So it's this second group that we really focus on and start to think about how can we add value to help them take steps in hopefully ultimately choosing NAIT. And we focus on how we can give them tools and resources to learn more about themselves, our school, and what we can offer in a way that is very approachable as well. So to kind of what Elle talked about earlier about Gen Z. So, with COVID, like one thing is really certain is that it has accelerated digital transformation for virtually every industry and organization. And for Gen Zs, they're considered like the first digital natives as they grew up in the digital age that we know of today. So we know that they're attached to their computers and their phones. With more than 74% of Gen Z say that they spend their free time online. And to Ellie's point earlier as well, we also know that they really value instant gratification. That is very important to this group. So they are more likely to take action when things are easily accessible in the moment at their fingertips. So when we took all this into account, we asked ourselves, like, how can we get their attention? How can we get them to engage with us? And hopefully start developing a relationship with them. And what came about was something called our Find Your Future quiz. So instead of me trying to describe it, I thought it would be really fun for us to actually just go through it very quickly. So I am wondering, Ellie, can I volunteer you to take this quiz with me?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right, okay, let me just share my screen. Whoops.
I will take on the role of an international student.
Sounds great. Student. All right, give me one moment. All right. Okay, Ellie, I'm gonna hit you with some hard questions right here, right?
Go.
Okay, Ellie, what environment do you see yourself working in? Do you see yourself working in a lab, in the clinic or hospital, doing physical work, working outside, or in the office?
I'm going to say in the office since I have an office job.
In the office, okay. And next question I have is like in school, which of the following was your favorite subject? So we had math, biology, chemistry, physics, history, reading and writing, phys ed, or art?
Definitely art.
Art, all right.
Always a fan.
Always a fan. You are happy when you are working with people or helping others. Is that yes or no?
Correct. That is a yes.
Yes? All right. Good to know. You're happy when you're working with numbers. Is that a yes or a no?
Have never
wrong
been
answers.
the biggest fan of math, so let's go with all pass. Also, I love that it is a gift from Schitt's Creek. So love that you made this quiz fun for students.
No, yeah, no, that was definitely one of the focuses, just to make it like really, really approachable here. So Ellie, as a child, you loved building Lego, spending time with friends, inventing, drawing, conducting science experiments, board games and puzzles, playing video games, or performing.
Well, I loved all of these things, but I think since I'm delivering a webinar right now, I'm going to go with performing.
Performing, okay. And then you prefer structure and schedule. You like to have a plan or routine, or do you like flexibility, where you have no plans at all and you do what you like in the moment?
Let's go with structure and schedule.
Okay.
Like to know what I'm doing and when.
Okay. And Ellie, which role best describes you? Are you the dreamer? Are you the shoulder to cry on? Are you the adventurer, the life of the party, or the organizer?
I am going to say the adventurer.
Adventurer, okay. And then you're happy when you're taking risks and trying new things. Is that yes or a no?
Definitely yes.
Perfect. And then what is a bigger motivator for you? Curiosity or logic?
Curiosity.
Okay, so Ellie, you are a creator. You're a future creator. So you have a passion for creativity. Creators need freedom to express themselves creatively. They are flexible and great at adapting to new situations. Creators are realistic dreamers. They come up with imaginative solutions to real world problems. They strive in an environment where they can enjoy the company of others, but also time for personal reflection and creative thought. So you are a creator. And I think that's very, with what I know about you, I feel like that's a very suitable persona.
This is spot on. And what I love about this, I see that you then have a list of suggested majors for a creator, and it has both of my majors in it. So I majored in communications and marketing, and they are both within that list. So
wow, okay.
The quiz is spot on and would have pointed me in the right direction of the major that I ended up loving. So awesome. I love Fantastic. This. It's super cool, so engaging. I could see how a student wouldn't even know that they're doing something that is lead nurturing, right? That it just feels fun for them. So
perfect. Yep.
Incredible.
Well, awesome. Thanks a lot for participating. So here, let me jump back into my presentation. And just give me a second. Here we go. All right. Okay. So yeah, so like the quiz itself, so what was the genesis of this? So we really wanted to create a BuzzFeed style quiz that was like really interactive, short, and aimed to help students gain a better understanding of like your interests and strengths and how it ties back to the NAIT programming. And what made BuzzFeed quizzes so successful was that they were quick, the content of the quizzes were very comprehensive and really casual by nature. So the principles that we used to develop this quiz was that it needed to be approachable, it needed to be low effort and low commitment. We didn't want this to be like a Myers-Briggs personality quiz that has dozens of questions. We really want people to be in and out of the quiz. Instant gratification, like I said earlier, really important to the Gen Z audience. They want something immediate and after they gave us their attention. And very lastly is like, we really want them to encourage exploring. So by the end of the quiz, we wanted to give them something meaningful and encourage them to keep looking into NAIT some more. So how did the quiz perform? So really, really well. So we had over 65,000 quiz completions, and we had promoted this in like a lot of different target countries that we're in. It's no surprise Canada was at the top, but we also got a decent amount of traffic from the Philippines and India, Mexico, and the United States. And in the process of that, we collected just over 1,600 emails. And from there, we developed a lead nurturing strategy to continually speak to this audience and give them value along the way. And just further to results, as well as like looking at those emails that we collected and just cross-referencing it with the data we have, we were able to confirm that we had 210 individuals who applied to NAIT, who also took the quiz. 112 of them enrolled in the program already, and 87 of those students are brand new to NAIT. So some of them might be returning students or students who are maybe starting a new program or a new career. Okay, so how do we nurture all these leads? So for each persona, we create an automated drip email campaign. So like I mentioned, we got over 1,600 email signups, and we have sent over just under 6,500 automated emails with an open rate of just around 50%. So the email series was between like 6 to 7 emails, with the first one being their quiz results, followed by content to really showcase what NAIT has to offer. So we have quick student stories that tie or align with the programs that were suggested in the first email. So we're a polytechnic. So one of our biggest differentiators is our hands-on learning. So we also had content around how students learn by doing and just getting them career ready as well. We also had a separate email track that was very specific to international students. So we really wanted to further personalize the emails based on whether they're domestic or international. We know that the needs and potential challenges for international students are different from domestic. So we wanted to give them content that not only highlighted the great things about NAIT, but also how we can help them achieve their ultimate education goals. So here is screenshots of some of the emails that we had, and we touch on just different content resources like international student videos. We had information about our ESL program, information about study permits, and just tips on how to apply as an international student. So when it comes to lead nurturing, to what a lot of the other panelists have said already, knowing your audience is really important as you build out your strategy. There's so many layers to our target audience that you'll just learn over time. But I think the important thing to know is that nowadays, people want to get information that's just relevant to them. They really just don't need another random email in their inbox. So one of the biggest things that we focus on within this project was our content development and just developing our content marketing mix. So one of the biggest questions asked when developing what type of lead nurturing is that, what type of content should we create? It sounds simple, but it can kind of be an overloaded question. So we have broken down our content into categories so that it can be more intentional and deliver value to our audience. So the content can be broken down into like 4 pillars. So the first pillar is entertainment. So one of the main goals, in my opinion, is to get the audience's attention. So I always say that as a marketer, I often sum up my job as I day trade attention. I try to get someone's attention. Chances are I'll lose it, and then I need to figure a way to get it back. And one of the ways to do that is to have really entertaining content, and content that should really trigger some type of emotion with your audience. And that emotion could be like humor, it could be excitement, it could even be sadness and pull on people's heartstrings. But when you get your audiences feeling something, not only are you gaining their attention, but you're also starting to build brand awareness and a relationship with them. And then you start to become memorable in their eyes. So some examples of like entertaining content could be like surveys. the quizzes that I just showed. It could be your brand video as well, and or you have like games, just something to grab your attention and just get them into your funnel. The next type of content we had was education. So this is a really important aspect of our content marketing mix. So this is where we connect with our audience and begin to solve a problem that they may have. So you gotta remember that different audiences have different problems, and their problem may change depending on where they are in your customer journey as well. And this is where you can come in and help them identify their problem and really refine it, and start introducing like your institution and your programs and services and how they relate back to the problem they're trying to solve. So examples of this type of content could be like infographics. It could be like career reports. It could be program overviews as well. So the image that I have right here is our annual view book. So this is our annual publication that talks about all of our different programs and all the different services we have at NAIT that we share with prospective students. The third pillar is inspire. So how can you inspire your audience? So this content should help them envision what they want to become. In my mind, inspiring content can be a game changer in how brands stand out. So similar to the entertaining content, you want to create some type of emotion with your audience, but with the aim to help them make a decision. So this content should be aimed for the latter stages of the decision-making process. So think of like student testimonials or student success stories. You have endorsements from alumni or even industry partners. I think that's also been very powerful for us. The industry partners, especially because those individuals are the ones that are ultimately hiring our students, and getting a testimonial from them is quite powerful. So this is just a screenshot of a video, of a student story video that we did with one of our international students. His name was Jashant. And it was a really a great story about him moving to Canada to pursue his career in engineering. And he talked about him experiencing the Canadian culture as well as his aspirations for the future. And the last pillar is convince. And some people even will call it persuasion. So to me, this is where you make your pitch. So you get very specific in how the end user benefits from you. So talk about like what really makes you different and how can you help them reach their goal or solve their problem. So this type of content is incredibly important because you can give them tangible value. So therefore, don't necessarily focus on telling them what makes you different, show them, as this really focuses on the latter stages of the buying cycle as well. So examples of this could be information about events, webinars. It could be tours, or it could just be like FAQs as well, as you get like as they might have like really granular questions at this part of the buying process. So our recruitment team here does a phenomenal job putting on a lot of different webinars and events throughout the academic year. And they have topics ranging from, NAIT 101 all the way to like how to apply, financial support, a lot of different pieces of content for us to like engage our audience throughout their buying cycle and making sure it's relevant to them. So just going back to knowing your audience again. So as mentioned by a lot of people on this panel, having an understanding of your audience is really the starting point of developing a lead nurturing strategy. So if you want to deliver like relevant and personalized content, start to understand your needs and your challenges and your triggers and your characteristics. Very similar to what Andy showed in one of his slides. So doing even like a basic persona development or customer journey exercise will really set you up for success. But also consider just talking to people, whether that is like people that have a more direct contact with your target audience, or talk to the end customer themselves. So talk to students and learn a little bit more from them. And the goal is to motivate your audience to take action. And to do that, you need to invest the time to understand just who they are. All right. So I have one last thought, and then I'll hand it back over to the IDP team. So developing or even refining a lead nurturing strategy can be daunting. And from today's chat, there are so many things to consider. You talk about content, you talk about technology, you talk about audience. So here's like my kind of 3 thoughts that I have and philosophies when I develop lead nurturing on my team. So the first one is start small. It's hard to imagine developing a strategy when you have multiple faculties and programs and conflicting projects and priorities. So the advice I always give is like, it's just start small. Start with one faculty, start with one program, or start with one audience segment. It's not important to be perfect. It is more important to just start. And from my experience is like, once you create something tangible, it could be just like one email to start. No matter how big or how small it is, it sparks more ideas, and it really becomes contagious amongst yourself and your team and the institution. So think big, but start small. The second thing I'll say as a piece of advice is experiment. So I fundamentally believe curiosity is one of the most important traits of a marketer going forward. With so much technology advancement and changes in consumer behavior, it can be challenging to keep up with it, but it actually opens up a ton of opportunity. So on top of starting small, experiment and play around and be curious. Do A/B testing that Andy mentioned. Test your content and your CTAs and your imagery. And it's not about succeeding or failing, especially as you're starting off. It's truly about learning and iterating and being a daredevil within your craft. So experimentation will get you to where you want to be a whole lot faster. And the last point is measure. So as I mentioned, we've been forced to accelerate our digital transformation plans. So in the process of that, we probably have more data at our disposal than ever before. But data that's not converted into information and then converted into action is completely useless. And we're in a better position now to make data-driven decisions. So when you're starting a new project, when it comes to lead nurturing, ask yourself, what do I want to know in the end? And you can reverse engineer and build a work plan from there. And at the end of it, I think what you'll be able to see and be able to do is that you'll be able to tell a better story and have more meaningful conversations with your students. You can make better informed decisions, remove biases and subjectivity, and just report on the impact of your marketing efforts on student recruitment at your institution. So start small, experiment, and measure, and just have fun with this. So that's the end of my presentation. So very quickly as well, thanks a lot for having me. I know we're going to jump into a Q&A very quickly here, but if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to chat with you about anything we talked about today. So thanks again. And I will pass it back over to Elle.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kevin. I absolutely love that quiz. So thank you for letting me take it live on the webinar. And it's awesome that you have so many submissions on it also. So clearly a successful strategy, helps you to segment your leads. Definitely a win-win. So just before I cover the key takeaways and before we jump into the Q&A section, we wanted to encourage attendees to send us ideas for future professional development topics for us to cover in this series of webinars that we'll be running this spring. So if you have anything in mind that you'd love to learn more about, that you feel your institution could improve upon within the realm of international student recruitment and marketing, please enter those ideas in the chat box located at the bottom of your webinar window, or feel free to email us after the webinar also, but we are always open to your ideas. So some key takeaways from our presentation today are to keep your communications timely after a student submits an inquiry. As we noted, Gen Z is waiting and they want to hear from you ASAP, especially the inbound leads. Segmenting your leads will allow you to send the most relevant information possible. A student from Brazil might not want the same information as a student from China, and so on. Create engaging content that answers questions, such as Kevin's great quiz that helps students realize what majors they might be interested in. Include multiple touch points in your journey. So as we saw, Andy at the University of Alabama has a series of 9 emails for prospective students. So each of those is a key touch point for students to interact with and has a clear call to action. And finally, track your success on your CRM or your email service provider, or even if you're still working in Excel spreadsheets. Just be sure that you are tracking your leads throughout the funnel so that you can determine which of your lead sources are converting best for you and which practices are paying off most for your institution. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to the Q&A. I saw we did have some great questions come in throughout, so we'll jump right in if our panelists could turn their cameras back on. So I see we have one, and this one is probably for IDP. How do you find and then ultimately target leads who are individuals who have researched other schools, institutions, not just yours? So this is the retargeting that I was discussing. We work with schools to identify a competitor set based on similar program offerings, location, etc. Whatever it may be, whoever you feel those primary competitors are. And then we have obviously a massive database of international students who are researching on our sites. So we're tracking them. We know which institutions they've been looking at, which programs. So then we're really able to target really accurately those students who are looking at your competitor institutions. And of course, because they're on our websites, they are students who are interested in studying abroad. So really highly targeted retargeting campaigns are possible. Okay, looks like this question is for Andy at the University of Alabama. Before importing your list of leads to your CRM, do you clean the list at all, and how do you avoid duplicates?
So we actually have a fairly good process for that now. Well, some of the fairs we just directly enter to our CRM. The form is a direct link to the CRM. But other fairs will take a list, and it might be an Excel spreadsheet that we'll go in and clean up. And what actually happens is our folks that go to the fairs, they will send it to one of our marketing team, who that is their job to clean that up, because especially if you're on the road at fairs, you might be running to a plane, you might not have time to do that. So having someone else back at the home base who can clean that up, remove duplicates, catch any emails. So our CRM will indicate if an email is known to not work as well, so we can clean that up. We have to have things, if there's diacritical marks, our CRM does not like those yet, which kind of disturbs me. So cleaning up those things. Yeah, so there is a lot of cleanup.
Excellent. Thank you, Andy. A question for either of you. How do you capture accurate leads during fairs?
Well, I guess I can address that. So the way to not do it is to do it with a pen and paper. That was, just collecting handwritten lists. We might actually be able to retrieve 50% of those because we just can't read it. And so, again, for us, our best practice is we actually use a tool called Akiro, which interfaces with our CRM, and it actually allows us to create really nice forms. And so the student we have it so the student is actually filling out that form in real time in the fair. If we don't have a web connection, it just downloads next time we connect. But just making sure that we have all the necessary information is really key. So, we may be talking to a student who is applying in 2 years' time. We need to capture that information and make sure that we're sending them messaging when they will be applying and actually sending messaging up to them. So we also collect things like phone numbers. We're actually not reaching out via text yet, but we might in the future. So we're collecting that sort of thing. As much information as possible is the key.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. The last couple of years we've been doing nothing but virtual. So I think the benefit of doing just virtual events is that you have some sort of digital mechanism to collect all the information seamlessly, and just to avoid the pen and paper fiasco that Andy talked about. And we're very similar in that we really focus on getting a lot of information up front about the prospective student so that we can nurture more accurately afterwards. So, identifying themselves as whether they're domestic or international students, if they're a student or a parent, or if they're a newcomer. I think that just giving them some sort of persona, that is also important. And then, when your start date or anticipated start date is another important aspect for us as well. And selfishly, from a marketing side, we also ask them about how they hear about how they hear about NAIT. So that also helps us like just refine our marketing mix and the different channels we're on.
Definitely. It's good to get as much information as you can at that point.
Yeah.
I see we have a couple questions, Andy, just asking if you could repeat the name of that program that you use to capture leads.
So we're using a tool called Akero, Akero, which interfaces with our CRM. I see someone was using iCapture. We used to use that. Akero is a little bit more high tech, a little bit more flexible than iCapture.
Excellent. Yes, we used to use iCapture at Temple, and it had some limitations to it for sure. So, but of course, anything is better than pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
So a question for you, Kevin, on the quiz, several questions on the quiz because it was such a hit. What tool or software did you use to build the quiz?
Perfect. Yeah, I was just looking at it. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to try answering by hand. But we use a platform called Involve Me. So your website is involve.me. We research a bunch of different quiz development tools. And oh my God, sorry about that. We researched a bunch of different tools, and that was the one that gave us the flexibility we need and the creative flexibility, as well as just being able to allow users to share their results on social media. And their like annual subscription was about like $1,000, so it was like a really reasonable investment.
Reasonable investment that paid off big time.
Yeah.
Exciting. Another question about the quiz. The 65,000 quiz completions was over what time frame?
That was about 13 months from launch to when I did that measure. So about one academic year. Yeah.
Very impressive. Amazing. And how did you generate the questions for the quiz?
So when we were developing the quiz logic, we needed some sort of like data set as a foundation. So on our website, on all of our program pages, we have something called interest tags. And what we did was that we downloaded the interest tags and correlate for each program and tried to find similar programs that have similar interests. And that's how we developed the personas. And then from there, that's how we developed the questions. We had a question about like, numbers, for example. So programs that have some sort of like numbers component to it that tie back to the interest tag, that's how we kind of work backwards to develop the quiz logic. I would definitely say that work with the data set was the upfront work. Me and my team were in the armpits of Excel for days trying to make sense of it. But that was like but after you get that figured out, the rest of it is actually quite easy.
Amazing. Cool. Well, the output was definitely worth it. So a question for either of you, what tools or software do you use to create graphics for emails? And while it might not be you specifically creating them, but what does your institution use?
Well, I can address, so we use a lot of InDesign, obviously Photoshop, that sort of thing. Nowadays, luckily, that's mostly our marketing team creating that, not me, what it used to be. That was not good.
You're kind of many talents, Andy.
I'm lucky enough to have like an in-house creative team when we have like graphic designers who are like super skilled at Adobe Creative. And we also have like on-staff videographer and photographer as well. So I'm really lucky in that regard. But if you're in a situation where like you have a very lean team and very lean creative services, I've heard people, and if you can't invest in something like Adobe Creative, I think software and platforms like Canva right now are like really powerful for very lean teams across all industries. And if you need like like photos, like there's like iStock where you have to pay, but there's also like photography websites that are like royalty free and you can get it as well. So one of them is it's called Petzl. I know that's out there. So yeah, depending on what situation you're in, like there's ways to like get around it and get creative.
Definitely. Lots of ways to work around it. Canva has just blown up over the past several years and it's super intuitive to use. So I encourage anyone who needs to create graphics who doesn't have experience in Adobe to check that out for sure. Okay, we have a question saying Google ads can be quite expensive. Are there less expensive alternatives? So I'm not sure exactly what you're paying since it can vary by audience and how deeply you're targeting. But I will say in addition to the retargeting that we offer, we also offer boosted posts on our student-facing Facebook pages. So for example, on our Hot Courses Abroad Facebook page, which has massive student audience, you can work with us to have a boosted post and reach a really wide audience. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please reach out to us. Another question asking if we offer nurture campaigns for partners. So yes, our core members benefit from lead nurturing through the IDP app, where they can send notifications to students who might have already viewed their profile or interacted with their content. If you're one of our partners and you're not currently working with us on nurturing leads, please feel free to reach out to us to chat more about that. Another question here for Andy. Curious how you are taking Bama's loss to the Georgia Bulldogs on Monday.
Quite poorly. It's a very sad time on campus.
Can't blame you for that. But Alabama has had a lot of wins in the past, so.
Yeah, we'll be back next year. Don't worry.
All right, and I see we've gone over time, so we'll just take this last question that I see came in, which is, do you utilize in-house newsletters? What software do you use for those?
So we don't really build too many like newsletters, like even the digital form where it's like, you know, just multiple articles within like one like edition. We really pride ourselves like on the email marketing part, just having an email that just has just all information like very quickly, easily digestible. And if they're and whatever they're interested in, they just like we kick them over to our website where they can learn more. We just found that newsletters for like the time commitment to develop them, the ROI just wasn't there. So we really, from a content perspective, really just double down on email marketing and try to keep everything native within the email. And that's been really successful for us.
Yeah, I would. I mean, pretty much what Kevin said there. We've tried that, and it's time committing, and just it's hard.
Absolutely, and you know, you want to keep attention spans in mind too, and people aren't really sitting there and reading an email for 10 minutes. So, as concise as you can make your content in your nurture emails, the better, for sure. So, all right, with that, I think we're out of time because we've gone over our hour. So I want to thank you all again for joining us. A massive thank you to our institutional panelists who just brought some really incredible insights. Thank you both so much. A reminder that we are very open to your suggestions on professional development topics for the future and themes that you would like to see us cover. So please feel free to drop any ideas that you have, reach out to us through email to share those with us. This webinar was recorded and the recording and the slides will be shared with you all in a follow-up email. Thank you again to everyone. Take care, stay safe and healthy, and we will see you all next time. Take care all.